Hi, it's me, Vicky Marie. I've got my hat on tonight. Somebody said I look like Lulu when she sang the man who, what was it? The man who sold the world. I wish I did look like Lulu. Well, when she was young, or even now, to be honest. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. And the reason I decided to, he's been on my list. I've got a massive list of cases that I want to cover. And the reason that he's came to the top of my list, of course, was because of the recent videos that I've done about Elisa Lam and the Cecil Hotel. And Richard Ramirez, he stayed in the Cecil Hotel. And it's thought that he came back from quite a few of his crimes to the Cecil Hotel. That's where he was living at the time. He lived in various hotels around Skid Row. These cheap and nasty hotels, if you like. So that's the connection. That's why I decided to do him tonight. Now, and you know what it's like. So I always have to decide which slant am I going to take on it, because, sometimes I feel like I want to talk about the victims, which I do want to talk about tonight. I'm going to mention all the victims, but of course with serial killers, there's quite a lot of victims. It's difficult to go into all of them, with a limited amount of time. But I am going to be mentioning all these victims. But he's an interesting character himself. Well, you'll tell me what you think as we go through this video. It feels different to me than other serial killers for various reasons. But anyway, we'll get into that in a minute. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you to everyone who's subscribed to my channel. Thank you for the thumbs up. Don't forget to thumbs up the video. Thank you for sharing my videos. Thank you for some people have bought me Ko-fis, sent me supers. Of course, a lot of you are members, and that is a brilliant way of supporting my channel. But anything, just sitting at home watching, anything you do to support my channel, thank you so much. I know a lot of people don't like to participate in the chat. They just like to watch. Some people are a little bit shy, and participating in the chat is just not their thing. But a lot of you do participate in the chat as well, so it's nice. So I just want to say hello to those of you who are sitting at home just watching, or maybe not at home, wherever you are, as well as, because now I'm going to say hello to everybody in the chat. Oh, and I just wanted to say thank you to those of you that have gone and followed me on Rumble. I think I've nearly got 30 followers. I think they're called followers over there. I am going to try a live one day, just to experiment, because as you know, it's just a backup plan. I'm hoping that I'll be on YouTube for a long time, but you just never know, do you? Okay, so let me go to the chat now. I think I've said what I wanted to say there. Go to the chat now and say hello to everybody. Chumba, hi Chumba. You're normally the first, or you're often the first, unless you fall asleep. Hi Desi, hi Rose Petal, Natalie Wood. Interesting case, isn't it? Natalie Wood. I love Natalie Wood. Very beautiful and very excellent actress. Will it ever come out what really happened that night? So, because it was Christopher Walken, wasn't it, and Robert Wagner, that were her husband at the time, that were there. And yeah, it's a similar case to Nicola Bulley in a way, because she had quite a lot of bruises, didn't she? She was, declared accidental death, wasn't it? Drowning. But then she had a lot of bruises. So So yeah, we'll look at that. Rose Petal. Hi Desi. Hi David. They're all chatting between themselves. I haven't missed anyone, have I? Rio, you like this hat? I like this hat. I thought I'd wear it. I just thought I'm not going to wear a mask. It's very hot here. I know I keep saying that. When's it going to cool down? It's 30 degrees. So the mask can get quite hot. Well, the hats can get quite hot. But, do you know, the real reason why I've got it on is because it goes in my dress, because it's pink. That is the basic reason why I decided on the hat. Hi, Tina. Hi, Saskia. Did you get my email? I replied to your email. Oh, good. Chumba's feeling better. I'm glad about that. Hi, Heather Cook. Go down and say hello to everyone, and then I'll start with talking. Oh, gosh, you're having a good chat there. You already liked. Yeah, you're not too bad today, Saskia. That's good. Hi, Yvonne. So Rio's still sore because she had a long day of Kung Fu yesterday. Oh, has it been good weather where you are as well? Gosh, still going. Robert started off smashing. Yeah. Hi, Jean. Oh, Desi's not too good today. Oh, well, we'll try and cheer you up. Well, it sounds funny, doesn't it, to say we try and cheer you up talking about serial killers. But cheer you up in the sense of chatting, etc. Hi, Stuart. Oh, so even London is sunny. Okay, so sorry, I've just got to check my... Oh, just got to check my message. Won't be a sec. Okay, so let's talk. Let's chat. Let's chat about Richard Ramirez, or the Night Stalker. That was his nickname, the Night Stalker, because literally that's what he would do. He would go out at night. Now, he lived in Los Angeles, as I say, in Skid Row. He lived in quite often, for quite a long time, he lived in the Cecil Hotel. But he lived in High-on-Pane. He lived very wet in Wales. It normally is, isn't it? That's why it's such a beautiful country, so green. So, yeah, but to commit his crimes, he would go out to the suburbs. Because, you know, it was easier there for him to, and people, he would sort of go into houses, he would be looking for money, but he would do all sorts of things. And we you know, I don't go into details of crimes and things like that. If, you know, if you want those sort of details, you can find those online. I don't go into too many details. Now, there's another thing that I'm going to talk about during this video, because this comes up with a lot of serial killers, is how women like them. You know, women sort of start writing to them when they're in prison and marry them. And, you know, he was like absolutely inundated with female admirers. And this is a condition that's called, I've written it down because I'll probably butcher the hell out of the pronunciation, but it's hybristophilia. Hybristophilia, which is basically falling in love, if you like, with a serial killer. You know, which is, you know, we can't really get our head around, can we? Because I couldn't get my head past the things that he'd done. Once you'd read about what he'd done, unless you didn't believe it, but he, you know, it was clear that he had done the crimes that he was convicted of. He never said he was innocent anyway, but anyway, we'll go into that. But we are going to look at that, because he actually did get married while he was in prison, but he had lots of different girlfriends, He was writing to lots of different women. Even one of the jurors from his case, well, there was various things he was convicted of. He was found guilty on all counts. But even one of the jurors went to visit him after. So she'd sat through the court cases with all the details of all the horrible things he did, because he did really, really, really horrible things. And she'd sat through all that and seen all the evidence, and she went to visit him, and she went to visit him often for a long, long time. So probably only stopped visiting him because he was seeing so many other women. So, but that's what, first of all, we're going to look at his background. Now, he did have, they all do, don't they, have an unfortunate life. But I don't think to begin with he did. He had some very, very bad influences in his life. And to all intents and purposes, when he was young, let's have a look at some photos of him. Because there's some photos of him when he was a little boy. This is what always intrigues me. When you see them when they're young, you just think, where did they turn from that lovely little boy that he looks like, because he's smiling and everybody said how nice he was, at school, etc. Oh, hang on, that's not the one I want to be on. It's this one. Is it this one or is it this one? Hang on. This one will do. When he was a little boy, this is more about his wife. It's him that I want to. Let's see if we can find a picture of him when he was a little boy. I mean, he's a very evil, when he went to court, he's a very evil looking man. I mean, I just don't think, and I think he would, well, he does. We're going to watch an interview with him. He admits to being evil. He was a devil worshipper, a Satanist. When he got older, I can't find a picture of him when he was a little boy. Let's see. Here we go. So I think Richard's problems started. I think by the time he got to this age, he looks a bit more scary, doesn't he? But when he was a little boy, look, the smiles. Where does it change? Where does it change? Anyway, I'll tell you where it changed, in my opinion, with him, is because from when he was 10, he was smoking weed. He was smoking weed, he started taking acid, he was taking all sorts of drugs. So to me, I think you could safely say that he changed from this sort of nice little boy, if you like, all smiles, once he started taking drugs. He also then had, I think it was his uncle was a really bad influence on him. And he apparently his actual normal family life was normal, if you like. He had quite a good childhood, etc. But having said that, he was abused by his father. So they say that he started developing gruesome and macabre interests in his early and mid-teens. He then got very close. I think it was to his cousin. Was it his cousin or his brother? So Richard's father was an alcoholic who was prone to fits of anger that resulted in physical abuse. So Richard started smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol at the age of 10. And psychiatrists described him as a made psychopath rather than a born psychopath. I don't know how I feel about that. I think, I've said before, lots of people have terrible upbringings, but they don't, turn into a psychopath, because he was really, really nasty. The other thing about him was he didn't have a victimology. We've talked about victimology before, that a lot of serial killers will have a type, that it'll be blondes, or it'll be children, or it'll be black women or black men, or, they have a type, a certain age maybe, young people or old people. For Richard, it didn't matter. It could be a man, it could be a woman, it could be a young woman, it could be an old woman, it could be a child. He didn't care who it was. And this is the most difficult killer to catch normally. So at one point, some of the police did think that there were several killers operating. And it was 2 detectives in particular that said, no, we think this is one person. And eventually, as time went on, they started linking them together, the crimes together. But initially, because some would be rapes, some would be rape and murder, some he would let go, some were couples. There were so many different issues in play that many police thought that it was more than one killer, but it wasn't. Anyway, his psychiatrist diagnosed him with schizoid personality disorder and said that this contributed to his indifference. But what happened when he was 12, his older cousin, it was Miguel Mike Ramirez, he was a Green Beret combat veteran who came out of the Vietnam War, but he often boasted of his war crimes, and he would share photos with Richard showing horrible events from the war, etc. And it's said, I mean, I don't know how true it is, but it's said that instead of being repulsed by these stories, by these pictures, by, these experiences, Richard became fascinated with them. And then he started, Mike then started taking the young Richard out with him to sort of spy on women and, be a peeping Tom, etc. He taught him his military skills, such as killing with stealth and staying hidden in the dark. And these were skills that Richard used later on, because he would hide outside a house. That's why he was called a night stalker. So he would come out of nowhere. He would watch a house. He would sit in a tree in the garden and wait for everyone to go to bed. And that's when he would make his move. So, and then also he liked the dark, and because of his father's abuse, etc., he would escape from his father's temper and sleep in a local cemetery. He would rather sleep all night in a local cemetery than be at home with his father. So, and he was actually present when his cousin Mike finally, on May the 4th, 1973, he shot his wife, Jessie, in the face with a handgun, and Richard was there when that happened, and she died. Jessie died. So he fatally shot his wife, Jessie, in the face with a handgun. And he later said it was not traumatic for him to see that murder. It was fascinating. He said it was fascinating. Anyway, his cousin Mike was found not guilty on the grounds of insanity, and his record in Vietnam was, PTSD was taken into account, and so he was sent to a hospital rather than to a prison. So, this was his background. This was his childhood, and it all seemed to go wrong from the age of 10 for Richard. And people that were interviewed later that went to school with him said that when he was at school, when he was young, he was really nice. And then something happened. We'll be watching some videos of them talking shortly. Something happened where he just changed and, became a different person. And one of his friends comments in one of these videos we're going to watch, that is when he started taking acid that he noticed the extreme change in his personality. Okay, now, so let me just come back and make sure you're all okay. I know I'm not, drugs were never, I was lucky, I think. Right. You're all chatting okay, you're all fine. I hope if I've missed anyone and haven't said hello to them, I can't go back through all that chat. So just say hello to me again and I'll see it before I go off onto the next thing. Right, I've got so many things ready to tell you. Where do I start? Where do I start? I think what I'm going to talk about next is I'm going to talk about his victims. Actually, that window can be closed. I'm just closing down any windows I can so that I don't get confused with which window to go to. Okay, so I think what I'm going to tell you about next are his victims, and I literally am reading these off Wikipedia because there are so many of them. I just won't be able to remember them all, and you know, I feel bad about that, but I want to mention all their names. So the first killing that he did, now this is important for later on as well, which I'll explain later, but on April the 10th in 1984, he murdered a little girl, a little Chinese American girl called Mei Lung. She was only 9 years old, and he murdered her in the basement of his apartment building in San Francisco. Anyway, I won't go into any more details, but he didn't only murder her, let's say. So he did various things to her that weren't very nice. And this killing was not actually linked to him. And this is significant later on because this was in 1984 and it was not linked to him until 2009 when he was already in prison. DNA, our old friend DNA, was matched to a sample. His DNA was matched to a sample that was obtained at the crime scene. So this poor girl, that her murder went unsolved, if you like, and it turned out it was him who did it. And in 2016, officials disclosed that there was actually somebody else there. There was DNA of another person as well, and who they're believed to have been present at the same time. But no, they've never publicly named this other person because they say they were a juvenile at the time and they haven't brought any charges due to lack of evidence. So there's somebody who's still walking around free now that was connected to that murder of a 9-year-old girl, Mei Lung. Anyway, that was, as I said, that was something. It makes you wonder, were there others that haven't been linked yet? It's possible, isn't it? So now we're coming on to his actual Night Stalker crimes, which he started in on June 28th, 1984. So this is what I mean about the difference between his victims. So you're looking at a 9-year-old girl. I mean, from what I can gather, he had lost jobs before because of attempting to attack children. So he was known for attacking children. But then on June the 28th, 1984, he murdered 79-year-old Jenny Vinco in Los Angeles. Again, I don't want to go into details about all her injuries, but they were awful, awful. Anyway, his fingerprint was found. That's how he was linked to that. So that's his second known murder. And this was the first one that established his pattern of breaking into homes and, you know, committing really vicious murders. Let me just make sure I'm still there. Yeah. Hi, Carla Parker. Right, so let's go back. So she was his first Night Stalker victim. So see the difference. A 9-year-old girl, now a 79-year-old woman. I just think, imagine just getting to that age and then waking up one night and his face is in front of you. Anyway, on March the 17th, 1985, he attacked 22-year-old Maria Hernandez. So we're going again, you know, he had no these are the hardest and the scariest people to catch. He didn't care who it was. It was just anyone. He just wanted to kill. He also, they think that the reason behind it as well was money, you know, for his drug habit, because, you know, drugs was a big thing with him. So he attacked 22-year-old Maria Hernandez and shot her in the face as she pulled into her own garage. Anyway, she survived because the bullet ricocheted off the keys that she had in her hands as she held her hands up to protect herself. She had her keys in her hand and the bullet ricocheted off the keys. And then inside the house, her roommate, Dale Yoshi Okazi, who was 34, she heard the gunshot, and unfortunately, when she raised her head to see what had happened, he shot her in the head and she died instantly. Within an hour of that incident, he pulled another, I wonder if he had something about Asian women, because he pulled out another Asian woman out of Lian Veronica Yu. I'm so sorry if I don't pronounce these names right. I'm so sorry. And he pulled her out of her car and shot her twice with a .22 caliber handgun. She was pronounced dead when she arrived at hospital. So that was 2 murders and 1 attempted murder just on one day. So you can imagine that this attracted attention from the media. And, you know, he was described as curly-haired, bulging eyes. Let's put his pictures up again, just so that you can see him. Going to put his pictures up so you can see. Now, of course, once it starts once, you know, these sort of things start happening, you can imagine the fear. Well, you know, Los Angeles is a very dangerous place. Well, in the city itself. The suburbs, though, are normally sort of a safer place. So it creates, let me just explain something while we look at this picture of him. I mean, he literally does look like the devil there. When he was in court, he held up his hand, like this photo had a pentacle on the hand, and he said, "Hail Satan." You know, he made constant references to the devil. Now, I do think this picture later on, now you tell me what you think, how evil he looks sort of here, because he would have been on his drugs and everything there. When he'd been in prison for a while, he seems to have lost some of that. I mean, was he possessed by the devil? Some people say he was literally possessed by Satan, you know. I don't know. He was horrible on his trial. Anyway, we're going to look at that later. So let me carry on talking about the victims. So that was those two. He murdered 2 women and attempted to murder another one on one day, on March the 17th, 1985. Those were in California. Anyway, on March the 27th, 1985, he entered a home that he had burglarized a year earlier, the same house, and killed the husband that was sleeping, Vincent Charles Zazara. He was 64 years old. He killed him. He just shot him as he was sleeping. And then he took his wife, Maxine Lavenia Zazara, who was 44. He beat her, did various things to her, and then he killed her. He did several things to her body as well. He mutilated her body, and he also attempted to violate her body. Anyway, he didn't, but he also stole the jewelry, etc. So that by then, I think the police were starting to think that maybe there was a serial killer. Anyway, on May the 14th, 1985, he entered the home of Bill Doy, who was 66, and his disabled wife, Lillian Doy, who was 56. He shot Doy, the husband, and he died, I think, when he was in hospital, yeah. And then he took Lillian, did various horrible things to her, but I think she did survive. She did survive. On the night of May the 29th, 1985, he killed two elderly ladies, Mabel Marbell, who was 83, and her disabled sister, Florence Nettie Lang, who was 81. Again, I'm not going into the details. I just want to mention all the victims' names. The next day, he sneaked into the home of Carol Kyle, who was 42. He bound her and her 11-year-old son with handcuffs, ransacked the house, did various other things, but they both survived. He didn't kill them. On the night of July the 2nd, 1985, he randomly selected the house of Mary Louise Cannon, who was 75. He killed her. On July the 5th, 3 days later, 1985, he murdered 16-year-old Whitney Bennett. Oh no, she survived. She survived, but she had catastrophic injuries. On July the 7th, 1985, he burglarized the home of Joyce Lucille Nelson, age 60. He killed her. He then chose the home, I think this was on the same day. He then chose the home of Sophie Dickman, age 63. Right, he didn't kill her, but he did attempt to violate her. And when she swore to him that he had taken everything of value, she had nothing left, he asked her to swear on Satan. He then purchased a machete. He chose the home of Lela Niding, age 66, and her husband Maxon Niding, age 68. He killed them, and I think we have to, although as I say, I'm not going into details, but he often mutilated the bodies of his victims. At 4:15 a.m, he broke into the home of the Kovanath family, shot 32-year-old Chanarong Kovanath in the head, killing him instantly. Then he violated and beat his wife, Somkid, bound the couple's 8-year-old son, and demanded that Somkid swear to Satan that she was not hiding any more money from him. August the 6th, 1985, did he kill them? Anyway, he attacked Chris Peterson and Virginia Peterson, aged 30 and 27. They survived. They had catastrophic injuries. They were shot, but they survived. On August the 8th, 1985, he chose the home of Sakina Abawath, 27, and her husband Elias Abawath, 31. And sometime after 2:30 a.m, he entered the house, killed Elias. He then violated Sakina, again, demanded that she swear on Satan. I tied her up, tied their 3-year-old son up, but they survived. Anyway, so he'd been following media coverage of his crimes. So he then left Los Angeles and headed to San Francisco, where on August the 18th, 1985, he entered the home of Peter Pan and Barbara Pan. That sounds again like an Asian name. It feels to me like it's targeting Anyway, Peter was 66 and Barbara was 62. He shot Peter in bed and he left Barbara for dead after assaulting her. And he drew pentagrams and the phrase "Jack the Knife" on the bedroom wall. He again left a shoe print at the scene. Okay, where are we going now? So then on August the 24th, 1985, he travelled 76 miles to Mission Viejo and went into the home of 45-year-old James Romero Jr. Let's see, did they survive? Yes, and his son, his 13-year-old son was there and was awake, but they did survive. They heard him and startled him. And then after this encounter, he broke into the house of Bill Carnes, age 30, and his fiancée Inez Erickson, age 29. I think so he entered the sleeping couple's bedroom and he shot Carnes in the head, 3 times in the head, turned his attention to Inez Erickson. He told her he was the night stalker and he forced her to swear she loved Satan as he beat her. And then he violated her, but he did not kill her. And Carnes survived as well, even though he was shot in the head 3 times. They removed 2 of the 3 bullets from his head and he survived his injuries. Now, those are the confirmed victims. There are suspected victims as well. There's Patty Elaine Higgins, Christina Caldwell, and 58, and 70-year-old Mary Caldwell. While he was in prison, he bragged that he had killed 20 people, so they may well be his victims. Okay, let me just make sure you're all still there. Hi, Wendy. Yeah, quite a few people survived, but can you imagine the trauma of surviving? And you'd have survivor's guilt, wouldn't you? Almost. But very, very terrifying. And, I think this is apt for this murder of Rachel Morin. We don't know about him if he's a serial killer. He seems to be going all over the country and nobody seems to be able to find him, even though they've got his DNA. But anyway. Okay, now the good bit. This is the good bit. This is when he was caught. And he wasn't caught by the police. He was caught by the public. It's very interesting, I think, how he was caught. So on August the 30th, 1985, he took a bus to Tucson, Arizona to visit his brother. He was unaware that he had become the lead story in virtually every, newspaper, television program. He was just on the news everywhere, but because he was traveling from place to place, he didn't really watch all the news, etc. Anyway, his brother wasn't home. He went to his brother's house in Tucson, Arizona. He wasn't home. So he returned to Los Angeles on the morning of August the 31st. He literally walked past police officers who were staking out a bus terminal, literally walked past them. They didn't notice him. They were staking out the bus terminal in the hopes of catching the killer should he attempt to flee. And he walked into a convenience store in East Los Angeles. And here we go. It's the grannies again. It's the grannies got him because there was a group of elderly Hispanic women in the shop, and they realized they recognized him from the news and the from the descriptions, etc. And they were fearfully identifying him as El Matador, which is the murderer or the killer. That's what matador means. You'll be interested in that, Rose, because of course you probably know. Matador, literally, matar is the verb to kill in Spanish, and a matador is a killer. And there he was in this convenience store, and he saw his face on the front page of the newspaper, the Spanish newspaper La Opinion, and with a headline calling him Invasa Nocturno, which is like night invader. So he fled the store in a panic, and he attempted to carjack an unlocked Ford Mustang, but he was pulled out by residents, angry residents, Faustino Pinon and Jose Burgoyne. I just think it's such poetic justice that he was caught by the public. Anyway, Ramirez ran across the street and he attempted to take the car keys from another lady, Angelina de la Torre, but her husband hit him over the head with a fence post. And then a group of over 10 residents formed and chased him down the street, and they caught him and they held him down and started beating him. At around 8 a.m, the police were called over a disturbance in the area with feud. So, he'd walked past the police at the bus station, and somebody then phoned the police after, as this, I mean, he's lucky, well, I say he's lucky, is he lucky? But, he's lucky he wasn't beaten to death, and he may well have been beaten to death, but the police turned up then. So, police arrived and they found that he was severely beaten and unarmed, and they took him into custody. So he was not caught by the police in the end. He was caught by normal people. And I've got a little bit of, so this great big crowd was there. It grew to several hundred people. They were all becoming unruly towards Ramirez, and anyway, they arrested him and they took him into custody. And I've got a little video to show you about it. So there he is. They've got him, the police, they've put some bandages around him. He was quite severely beaten. I just think it's brilliant the way he was caught. He doesn't want to be filmed, so he's lying down, but they make him sit up in a minute.
Danny, where's your car? Never been arrested before in LA?
I don't think he had been arrested before. That policeman just said to me, have you never been arrested before? I don't think he had. How he'd done that, managed that, I just don't know.
How long ago? What's your name? What's your name? 11.
Yeah, when he appeared on his mugshot and that, he's got a great big bruise on his nose. They've obviously that thing on his head, that must be where the guy whacked him over the head with the fence post. Good for him.
Back up on the sidewalk, please. Go back.
He's very arrogant. You'll see that when it comes to his court. I mean, he was a bit stupid going back to Los Angeles. They always unravel in the end. They think they're clever, and he was clever, or he was clever's maybe not the right word. He was evading the police for so long. Clever is not the right word, is it? I don't know what, sly, if you like, but he, going to Los Angeles, well, he hadn't been watching the news. He didn't realise that his picture was pasted all over the news and all over the newspapers. He was actually probably glad when the police turned up, because I think that wouldn't have been a very good end for him. Anyway, let me just put that down now. Coming back to see you now. Yeah, have you not seen that that his arrest before? I've seen there is some more footage, but I couldn't find it. That was all I could find tonight. But I mean, he has got black eyes. They've all murderers, you know. They've always got these horrible eyes, haven't they? But anyway, you know what I think? Eyes, the window to the soul. So where are we going to go now? So let's go to, so that was his capture. Oh, and then this really weird thing happened at his trial, because, well, I told you what he did at the trial. Let's go back to his photo. I told you what he did at the trial, where he held up his hand and it had a pentagram on it, and he said, "Hail Satan." You know, he just throughout his whole trial, he was obnoxious, he was arrogant. Of course, all these women thought he was bloody gorgeous and what have you. You know, this is where he started, you know, he's all moody and I mean, I just think he looks revolting. He looks better later. You know, prison was good for him. Prison was good for him. It looks like he was, you know, he put on a bit of weight, maybe got off the drugs or whatever. And when I look at this picture of him, which is obviously quite a few years later, he looks like a different person, doesn't he? He doesn't look so mean there. Maybe, you know, whereas at his trial, look, he's so arrogant. This was his mugshot. Look, he's got a bruise on his nose. I don't know. Oh, this picture is, don't know whether that was one of his mugshots, but it's a revolting picture, isn't it? I think this picture was taken, the picture where he looks a bit more normal. He looks like two different people, really. I know he's older, but I think that would have been after he was found guilty of the little girl's murder, because it was so many years later when they tied that DNA. So, right, let's have a look. What did he get? So on September the 20th, 1980, oh, that's right, I was going to tell you the strange story about one of the jurors. So not only one of the jurors ended up sort of visiting him after he went to prison, his trial started, or his jury had been selected, and it was due, I don't know if it had just started or it was due to start. No, it had just started. And then on August the 14th, the trial was interrupted because one of the jurors, Phyllis Singletary, didn't arrive at the courtroom. And that later that day, she was found shot dead in her apartment. And of course, the jury then was terrified because they felt it was him reaching out, you know, to kill off all the jury. Anyway, it transpired he was not responsible for her death. It was her boyfriend, who later self-deleted with the same weapon in a hotel. So, but initially, everybody thought it was something to do with him. I mean, but God, talk about a coincidence. That so the day she gets chosen, or a couple of days after she gets chosen for jury service, maybe that was part of the argument. You know, I don't know. She might have. You never know. She might have actually turned around to her boyfriend, made some comment about him, and her boyfriend was obviously not a nice person. Anyway, and he shot her to death, and then he's shot himself as well. So it just brings chaos everywhere, this guy. Anyway, on September the 20th, 1989, so it's not that long ago, is it really? Ramirez was convicted of all 43 charges, which were 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sex assaults, and 14 burglaries. And he was sentenced to death in California's gas chamber. He said to reporters after the death sentences, big deal. Death always went with the territory. See you in Disneyland. So apparently the trial cost $1.8 million, which at the time was the most expensive murder trial in the history of California, until the O.J. Simpson murder case. Well, I've been bitten. Oh, I've been bitten on my finger. Anyway, so there you go. He's in prison. He's been sentenced to death. You think, oh, great, you know, that's the end of it. But in the meantime, he's got all these women, right? And so we're going to look at some, and he ended up getting married. I just don't think they should be allowed to do that, these prisoners. I honestly don't. I suppose Levi Belfield, he'll have married now. He was given permission, wasn't he, to get married? Shouldn't be allowed. They should give up that right, you know, to get married when they're going to prison. It's disgusting. You know, it's just so disrespectful to the families of the victims, isn't it? Well, he didn't get as far as the gas chamber, David, in the end. But anyway, we'll talk about. He's not with us anymore, though. So hopefully, I'm not getting haunted by him. I've had Raoul Moat, I've had Ted Bundy. I don't want to be haunted by this guy. So where am I going now? I want to show you. Right. So I'm going to show you an interview with a girl or a woman. Now I will have to keep stopping this because I don't know if it does say free global documentaries and clips, but you never know if they're going to pick you up for copyright. Let me just make sure that's showing up. Yeah. Now this girl, woman, whatever, she fell in love with him. And she started writing to him. She became obsessed with him. So we're going to see this other lady went to interview her.
Put forth love letters and poetry.
She asked to meet her in front of a coffee shop.
So this is the woman who was in love with Richard Ramirez, and this lady that's going to visit her and interview her, she's going to interview because she just doesn't understand it at all. This is the woman. I think he said that this was her sister, but if you watch the way she sometimes looks at her, you can tell she's looking at her. Imagine, what would you say to your sister if she said, oh, by the way, I've fallen in love with the Night Stalker. Sorry, I do have to keep stopping it, but I can comment. I watched a movie. My God, it can't have been a very good movie if it made her feel like she fell in love with. Wrote her back. He's got nothing else to do. He's in prison for the rest of his life. Well, until they, execute him. What else has he got to do but to write to idiots? And probably he was writing to loads. Well, apparently he was. Apparently there was a lot of jealousy. Well, I'm not making fun of her, but it is like a mental illness, that, isn't it? I mean, she's obviously got a problem with commitment, or you are safe, I suppose. Well, as long as you don't actually go and see them. Wait till you hear about what happens when she did go and see him. But I'm a bit speechless, actually. It takes a lot. 700 letters. I wonder, if they're sort of... Do you think some of them think that if they get letters, they might be worth something one day? Or, I mean, what did she do with those letters, I wonder, in the end? So then there's the juror as well that had found him guilty. This guy's saying there were women flocking to the facility to visit him. Oh my God, I bet he never had a day where he didn't have a visit. And I do think that's true, isn't it? That's it. It's like, Brad Pitt's never going to sort of be interested in them, unfortunately. And I suppose the serial killers, they're in prison. They're like, they can't exactly go out, and mind you, they still managed to have lots of other women's attention. So even being in prison, it didn't stop him being unfaithful. I think that was the same for most serial killers like Ted Bundy, etc. He had his wife Carol, but he was also still writing to his ex Liz, and just because they're in prison doesn't make them faithful. Sorry, I wasn't going to say she's thick, but the way she's saying it, like as if she's surprised. This is the night stalker. He's not going to fantasize about, buying her a big bunch of roses and taking her, taking her for a nice meal. He's like fantasizing about other things. He was so tall, but yeah.
When he was younger, pictures,
I mean, she's not all there, is she? She can't be all there. Bless her.
he was hot.
See, I think the opposite. I think he looked like a shark then, and he looked in that last photo. He looked at least, a bit more normal. But he didn't look normal. I'm talking in comparison, not say. I don't understand what she's saying. When he was young, he looked quite nice. He didn't. He looked evil.
Before it bites you, before eyes roll over white.
Yeah, he was at San Quentin. They have quite, because that's where Johnny Cash went and played, didn't he, for the prisoners, and also Metallica went and played. They have regular concerts.
They are together at last.
It was interesting.
See, that just would do me straight away. Look, you've got the signs there. Sit down when shots are fired. Inmates approaching. Incoming aircraft will be shot. Surely, do you think she was just like in this fantasy in her head? It seems like when she actually went to see it, it did all become dispelled. But it was then put back in place because executions came back, but anyway, didn't end up being executed. But he is no longer with us, but we'll be talking about that. Anyway, so that was her. So that was one early on. We are going to look at the lady that he actually ended up marrying. But it's not normal behaviour, definitely not normal behaviour. Well, it's this thing, isn't it? This hybristophilia. I have to look at it and write down. Very scary, very scary. Okay, so what am I going to show you next? So, so then he actually did get married. So we're going to look at who he married. And I get this particular woman, to me, she just seems like quite a nice woman. I just don't understand, whereas, sorry, I turned the camera off by mistake. I don't understand that woman, to be fair, she did seem a bit not quite the full shilling, as if I'm probably not even allowed to say that anymore. But whereas this lady that actually married him, she did seem like, you tell me what you think.
Doreen Leoy as part of a documentary on the Night Stalker.
There are many who would look at Richard Ramirez in the eye and say, he is the face of evil. Mm-hmm. And yet you look at him and you see the man of your dreams. Yeah. Who needs glasses here?
I can't help the way the world looks at him. They don't know him the way I do.
And the next day, Doreen walked down the aisle.
So this is her wedding day. She's got a white dress on, white lacy dress on, and she's going off to the prison to marry him.
I'll be at a prison aisle with her groom. Here's the couple and her response at being the new Mrs. Richard Ramirez.
It feels wonderful. I'm so happy. I'm so thrilled, very proud, and
proud.
A little relieved that the bulk of the day is over, and just hopefully I can enjoy the rest of the day with his family. And think about the importance of what happened today.
Let's just listen to that again, what she said, because of course my dog started barking. Don't know why it's flicking. Oh, can I go back a bit? I don't think I can go back. Hang on. Anyway, this is just her holding the picture up, or somebody holding the picture up. Let's try it. Okay, I can't go back there. So that's his wife. Now, she actually married him, Doreen Leoy. They actually got married. And she divorced him finally when she found out. Sorry, let me just come back to you. Hi, Phyllis. Thank you. She did. Oh, thank you. She divorced him when she found out about the little 9-year-old girl, when it was confirmed by his DNA many years later about the little girl that he'd killed all those years before. His wife finally saw the light. I don't know why that sort of tipped her over, was it? You know, because he'd killed all those other people. Maybe it was because it was confirmed by DNA and he couldn't sort of wriggle out of that. I don't know. But anyway, she did divorce him in the end. Now, I want to have a look at a couple of interviews with him, which I find quite sort of fascinating. I want you to let me know. Riley, stop it. Riley's pushing me with his nose to try and get up. Okay, a conversation with Richard Ramirez.
Do you admit to being evil, Richard?
We are all evil in some form or another, are we not?
Convicted serial killer Richard Ramirez seemed to relish the concept of evil. Once upon a time, a lot of folks in the state of California viewed the one-time Texas altar boy as evil's human embodiment.
Yes, I am evil. Not 100%, but I am evil.
So he's not 100% evil, but he is evil. Now, I think this interview was done earlier on. That there's another one that we're going to look at, which I think might have been an interview a little bit later on, but I don't know. But anyway, so what he's saying is, yes, I am evil. Not 100%, but I am evil.
Summer of 1985, the Texas drifter descended like a deadly disease on a hot California night. A one-man epidemic of madness and murder. One of America's first serial killers to be given a brand name. The name, the Night Stalker.
Lock your doors, lock your windows. If you have the ability to provide additional security devices, then by all means do so.
Who wants to be next? I don't. No one else does.
He preyed on both women and men, young and old. He slipped through windows, slit throats, raped, tortured, and killed.
Yeah, and this is what. So he was one of the first. Gosh, how can I put it? So he, you know, it was at a time when it was evolving, this study of serial killers. You know, it was like profiling and all these kind of things. But he didn't fit into any of the sort of emerging science of serial killers. He didn't fit into it because he didn't have a certain victim that he targeted. It was almost like a spree killer. He was almost like a spree killer because he would do, like, you know, kill maybe 3 people in one day. Or serial killers don't normally do that. They normally have a longer cooling off period. So he was, you know, a bit of and also his modus operandi, the way he killed, was different in each case, because serial killers normally always kill in the same way. You know, it'd be strangulation, or it'll be stabbing, or it'd be whatever their favoured way is. He, you know, he was just like whatever. You know, he might shoot someone, he might strangle them, he might stab them. There was no, sometimes he let them live, like plenty of his victims that he did let them live when he could have killed them. You know, so he's you know, and that is he's so lucky that those people, the public, caught him, because the police were struggling to catch him for that reason. And of course, it was just before DNA. He wasn't caught by DNA. He was caught by, you know, the evidence that they had at that time was like the old-fashioned evidence, fingerprints, boot prints. You know, like there was no the DNA at that time. The DNA that they tied him to the little girl with came much later on.
He did to me has been the total destruction of my life and my girlfriend's life.
Former computer engineer Bill Carnes, one of Ramirez's many victims. One night, Carnes and his girlfriend were assaulted in their bed. The woman was raped, and Bill Carnes shot 3 times in.
Yeah, this is the guy that was shot 3 times in the head. And they removed 2 of the bullets, so he must still have one there.
The head. Bill Carnes ended up in a group home with a bullet still lodged in his brain.
Wow.
He stole my memory. He took my girlfriend. He took my career. This was just an unprovoked attack.
But after dozens of such attacks, police identified their suspect. And on the morning of August 1st, 1985, Richard Ramirez's picture.
Oh, yeah, that was the picture in the paper that the granny saw in the convenience store and started talking about him.
Ran on front pages, and within hours, angry residents of this East LA neighborhood spotted, captured, and then severely beat Richard Ramirez as he tried to steal a car to evade police.
Maybe that's what they need to do with Rachel Marin's killer. Well, that is what they are doing now. They're putting more flyers out, aren't they, to the Hispanic community. But it's just that, it seemed like that picture that was right on the front page of the newspaper. Maybe they need to try that.
We're happy to announce that the individual.
Of course, it's different now because of social media, etc. People probably don't get newspapers the same. But they need to look at what are the Hispanic people in that area, because it's probable that the murderer of Rachel Marin, who's linked to Los Angeles, he probably lives in that same area. And if they could somehow, you know, they need to, I know they're putting flyers out and things, and I know that they've got many more leads from that, but it's like on the Facebook pages or, you know, the social media for the Hispanic people.
The individual we have in custody is Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker.
I can't begin to tell you how proud we, all of us, are of the people in this community who, to a man and a woman, were involved in trying to track this guy down and capture him.
I mean, that is real people power, isn't it? I mean, they caught him. He's brilliant.
That night, there was dancing in the streets of the East LA neighborhood where Ramirez was caught. But in court, the case dragged on for 4 long years, with the Texas drifter frequently disrupting the proceedings by displaying satanic signs and shouting obscenities at the judge.
This trial is a joke.
With the jury in the above entitled action, find the defendant.
I bet that judge was absolutely terrified.
Richard Ramirez guilty of murder.
But in the end, the jury sent Richard Ramirez to California's death row for 13 murders. I first met Richard Ramirez shortly after his LA conviction. Richard had been transferred to a jail in San Francisco where he was charged with and ultimately would be found guilty of a 14th murder. What do you want?
Sorry, I'm just stopping it every now and again because of the possibilities of copyright, because they'll just suspend the stream otherwise.
The world to know about you.
The world has been fed many lies about me. I have read very few truths.
Who are you?
Just a guy.
Oh, just a guy. Well, he's not your average guy. He's just a guy. Yeah.
Just a guy.
And
I have friends. And that is all I care to say, really. They are open-minded people.
And it was he.
So he says, I have friends. They're open-minded people. God, he does look massive there, doesn't he? God, he's big. This guy's little pipsqueak next to him, so he must have been pretty terrified.
Here in a cramped room in a San Francisco jail that I interviewed the man known as the Night Stalker. A memorable face-off with me asking questions and Ramirez, for the most part, reading from a script.
Did you kill 13 people?
It would be improper for me to comment.
So he quite often looks over at his lawyer. You'll see that in the other interview as well, because he was going through appeal procedures at the time. So he was wary about what he said. Well, at times he was wary about, but you could see he forgot about it at times, and you saw the real him a couple of times.
On my LA convictions and on my pending case here in San Francisco.
Why?
Because of my appeals.
Are you appealing these because you say you're innocent? You didn't kill 13 people?
That is correct.
You didn't kill 13 people.
Again, it would be improper for me to comment in any regard to that question.
You have now entered a very rare group of people in this country. You're in the ranks of church.
Now, watch him here. When he says to him, you've entered a very rare group of people, and like Ted Bundy, etc., he likes it.
Charlie Manson, Ted Bundy. You claim you didn't commit these murders, but you're right in there now as far as everybody else is concerned.
Serial killers do on a small scale what governments do on a large one. They are a product of the times, and these are bloodthirsty times. Even psychopaths have emotions if you dig deep enough, but then again, maybe they don't.
Joe, that's when I think when he says that, you really do see the real him. Like, that's quite scary though. Let's watch that again. Oh, it's the most replayed. I'm not surprised.
Large one. They are a product of the times, and these are bloodthirsty times. Even psychopaths have emotions if you dig deep enough, but then again, maybe they don't.
Do you have emotions, Richard?
No comment.
Tell me what kind of emotions you got going through you right now.
I'll tell you what, I gave up on love and happiness a long time ago.
Why?
When he says to him, do you have emotions? I think he looks at him as if he would kill him there and then on the spot. Let's go back. Let's go back a bit. It's just...
Even psychopaths have emotions if you dig deep enough, but then again, maybe they don't.
Do you have emotions, Richard?
No comment.
Tell me what kind of emotions you got going through you right now.
I'll tell you what, I gave up on love and happiness a long time ago.
Why?
I don't care to explain that.
Somebody...
Let the quote stand for itself. People in this day and age are brainwashed and programmed like a computer at being nothing more than puppets. This nation, this country is founded in violence. Violent delights tend to have violent ends.
Violent delights tend to have violent ends. Well, he was supposed to have a violent end if he was supposed to be, I think, electrocuted or whatever. But he actually had a very quiet end.
Madness is something rare in individuals, but in groups, people, and ages, it is a rule. Killing is killing, whether done for duty, profit, or fun. Men murdered
He's reading off a script there. He's got a script in front of him.
themselves into this democracy.
You're good at reading your script, Richard, but you're not much at answering my direct questions. A lot was made that you're a devil worshiper. Do you worship the devil? Have you ever studied Satanism?
There are different sects of Satanism.
Have you studied, just yes or no, have you studied
Yes.
Satanism?
Sorry, I've just got to stop it for a minute. I can't let it go more than a couple of minutes.
Yes, I have.
Are you a worshiper of the devil?
No comment.
Come on, Richard.
I can tell you a little bit about Satanism.
Well, I'm interested in hearing what you got to say then.
Do you think he was shitting himself? Because I would have been.
It is undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit. It is power without charity. A Satanist admits to being evil.
Do Do you admit to being evil, Richard?
We are all evil in some form or another, are we not?
We are all evil, but some are evil than others.
I'm asking you the questions, my friend.
Yes, I am evil. Not 100%, but I am evil. Evil has always existed. The perfect world most people seek shall never come to pass. And it's going to get worse. The great epochs of our life is when...
Does a lot of sighing, doesn't he? Let's just go back a little bit there.
Not 100%, but I am evil. Evil has always existed. The perfect world most people seek shall never come to pass. And it's going to get worse. The great epochs of our life is when we gain the courage to rebaptize our evil qualities as being our best qualities.
So when we've learned to rebaptize our evil qualities as being our best qualities.
And as the interview draws to a close, I cannot help but recall Bill Carnes and the thought that behind this glib young man, who seems to flatter himself as a kind of rock star outlaw, lies the bodies of at least 13 innocent people and the shattered lives of dozens more.
You're entitled to your opinion. And that's it. Thank you.
Photographs outside the room,
Shut the
gentlemen.
camera.
Do you admit to being evil, Richard?
Well, there you go. What did you think of that interview? Let me just shut that down now because we've seen that. Gosh, he is quite scary, isn't it? Isn't he scary? I think that I don't think I'd like to be sat in a room with him. Well, I can see that there are other people. Obviously, that guy wasn't sat there on his own with him, but he is. Anyway, we've got another interview to look at. I think it's slightly different in this interview somehow. Let's see. Oh, not Charles Manson. He's another one, isn't he? Where's that gone? Hang on. Oh. Death row interview. Ah, here it is. Okay. Where's this interview?
I didn't particularly care for people.
So he didn't particularly care for people. He doesn't look quite as manic here. I think something while he was in prison, something. I'm not saying he, found God or anything because I don't believe he did, but I don't know. He does something shifting in him a little bit.
In a rare interview, Ramirez refused to discuss his own crimes, but had this to say about serial killers.
A serial killer comes about by circumstances and like a recipe, poverty, drugs, child abuse. These things, or contribute to a person, to a person's frustration and anger, and at some point in life, he explodes.
Perhaps for Richard Ramirez.
I did find that, that's what that recipe that he talked about, he had all those things, didn't he? There was child abuse from his father, there was poverty, there was drugs, all those things he mentioned certainly applied to him. But, you know, they do apply to a lot of people, don't they? So they don't all end up murdering, you know, children or women. So I don't know, but do you see what's in his eyes look different? So maybe the devil, I don't know, because I do believe in the devil, because I think if you believe in good, you've got to believe in evil. Or if you believe in evil, you've got to believe in good, you know, because the two are like yin and yang, aren't they? So he just seems differently. Maybe he's on maybe he's being sedated. Maybe that's why he seems different.
As that anger and frustration turned to rage, which he in turn took out on his victims. His killings were so sadistic and brutal that even experienced detectives were shocked.
He took a woman in her 60s and stomped her to death with his foot, leaving an imprint of a shoe on the side of her face. From that to just executing somebody upon walking into a room after he entered a house. He strangled, he used a ligature, he used a tire iron on a young girl, beat her, left her for dead.
Will your anger subside if you had...
So these are the two sons of one of the old ladies that he murdered.
To wipe up your mother's blood. I couldn't finish it. I had to leave my brother to finish that chore.
Why on earth would you have hurt those people? Why did you kill those people?
So I think he's looking at his lawyer there. It's just like as if to look at and see if he's allowed to answer it. But he's just smiling.
No comments. No comments. I cannot answer that at this time.
What was Richard's motive?
To kill.
That's it?
To kill. It's as simple as that.
Richard Ramirez was raised in El Paso, Texas, the youngest of 5 children born to hardworking, strict parents. Eddie Milam was Richard's best friend back then and remembers when he began to change.
So this is his best friend from school.
Into a troublemaker.
I did start seeing something going wrong with Ricky Ramirez. I think what really messed him up was the acid. He would do a lot of acid. The stealing, you know, I noticed the stealing and then started as a peeping Tom and things like that.
Ramirez's passion for burglary earned him the nicknames of Ricky the Thief and Fingers. But Eddie knew Ramirez had other serious problems when he was fired from a local hotel.
He said,
sorry, I'm just stopping it now. So yeah, he's going to tell you about why he was fired from a hotel, which was sort of a sign of what was going to happen.
He was fired. He was dismissed due to the cause that he had tried to molest 2 little kids that were going up the elevator.
By 18, Ramirez was a high school dropout drifting around California. He stayed in Skid Row hotels, never seemed to work, but always had the money to buy cocaine. Friends say the Richard Ramirez they knew didn't date and wasn't the type to commit such heinous crimes. But convicted murderer Martin Kipp, who befriended Ramirez in prison, says he heard another side of the night stalker.
Richard told me he needed to...
Yeah, a lot of the people that he went to school with when he was very young said, you know, he was a lovely child.
Associate gruesome violence with sex in order to be completely satisfied. He also told me that he had to violently fantasize about his victims before he could go away sexually gratified.
They are desires, whereas if I didn't give in to them, I would be crushed by them. I believe in the evil in human nature. This is a wicked world. And in a wicked world, wicked people are born. I'm not going to blame society, my race, or people, or anything. It is up to the individual like myself to keep on knocking on whatever door they want to get into.
Because the victim...
I think that's the first time that he actually acknowledges that it is him, you know, like said it's up to the individual. So he's taking a bit of responsibility, I suppose.
Victims and the methods of killing were so diverse, many experts felt there was no one Night Stalker. Detectives Carrillo and Salerno disagreed and finally broke the case by matching shoe prints. The subsequent trial turned into one of America's most notorious courtroom dramas, punctuated by continual outbursts from Ramirez. In that trial, Ramirez's fascination with Satanism emerged.
As far as Satan is concerned, I believe in a malevolent being. His description eludes me, but I have felt powers that are evil.
After an
I think if anyone should know about Satan, it'd be him.
8-month trial, Ramirez was convicted of all 13 murders and given multiple death sentences.
I don't care about myself, really. I don't care about what happens to me. I never did, really.
Okay, so this is what happened to him. He died in June 2013, 10 years ago, of complications secondary to B-cell lymphoma. He had cancer. He had a very rare cancer. He was 53 years old and he had been on death row for more than 23 years. So that's what happened to him. So he went out not so much with a bang as a whimper, really. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? Cancer, I can't say I hope he suffered because, I just can't say that. But I hope he's paying now, wherever he is. He's moved on from this world. And he'll know now whether there is a devil or not. So, yeah. Are you all okay there? In chat. Yeah, I think he probably is in hell. If anybody, he'd definitely be atoning for whatever he did and facing his consequences or, gosh. Oh, hi, Kelly. Yeah, I'm just about to finish. Gosh, because this is quite a long one for me. It's nearly, it's an hour and 40 minutes. I don't normally. I hope you've all liked the video. I forgot to tell you to like, as I always do. But yeah, I think you know anyway. But yeah, fancy him getting cancer before he could, because he was going. The thing about the death penalty, whatever you think about it, whether you agree with it or not, it's just it lingers on for so long, doesn't it? It lingers on and on and on. And in the end, he was on death row 23 years. Because by the time we've gone through all the appeal processes, etc. So even 23 years on death row wasn't enough for him to see his sentence. Oh, Australia clocks have gone forward. Oh my God, already. I think it's 31st of October, isn't it? Here they go forward the same time as, no, I don't agree with the death penalty either, Stuart. I don't agree with it. I just don't know what the answer is. The thing is, the death penalty, as I say, it does. It just seems to go on and on forever as well. But anyway, it's. I do think people can suffer more. They suffer more being in prison. The death penalty sometimes a lot of serial killers, Isaac Keys, not Ted Bundy, he didn't want it. Who was the other one? Ed Kemper. A lot of them, they ask for the death penalty. They want the death penalty. And in fact, Isaac Keys, he actually deleted himself, but when he realised, the thing is, he wanted the death penalty on his terms. He wanted to say, next Friday, I'm going to be executed. Well, it doesn't work like that, does it? So, and then Ed Kemper, he's still alive. Ed Kemper, he wanted the death penalty. Yeah, I think, sometimes I know they're looked after in prison. They are looked after, but still, it's not. It's not ideal. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't know what the answer is. But the thing is, there'll always be people like this because there is evil in the world. Gosh, take my hat off. It's hot. It's still hot. What am I on now? 28 degrees. Yeah, exactly. There have been innocent people have been killed. And yeah, I think the death penalty, I think with serial killers especially, I don't think the death penalty, because it's almost like something that's wrong inside them. I don't think it would stop them from doing it. You know, I genuinely don't think that. And then other people who kill like in a moment of passion, would they really sit there and think, oh, well, I might get the death penalty? But anyway. Oh, he's a... That's a real monster, isn't it? Yeah, I hope he isn't going to come and haunt me. It's a funny thing with this guy. I don't know. Does anybody agree with me that he seemed different later on? Like maybe he, I don't know. Okay, so thank you all for being, the electric blanket. Oh, can't be that cold. Oh my God. Anyway, I have got an electric blanket, but if it's rare that I need to put it on, but it's there just in case. Oh, thank you. Well, I'm glad you found it interesting. I think one thing, Richard Ramirez, he is interesting, and of course it ties in with the Cecil Hotel and what we've been talking about, and Los Angeles and Rachel Marin's killer. I do feel like, look at that community there, how they caught him. This is where they need to be going with Rachel Marin's killer. If they think he's Hispanic, that'll be the kind of community that he's in. Okay, thank you so much. Oh, and thanks for your nice words. I'm glad, because it's difficult for me. I don't always know how it comes over to you, but at least I didn't make too many cock-ups, so it seemed to go okay. So night-night, sleep well. Remember to always live and love carefully, wisely. And until I see you again, may your God go with you. Thank you.